Welcome to Voice of the Nation. Today we are going to talk about warfare in today's world by taking example of what happened in Ukraine and Russia and try to see how warfare in 2022 has evolved from the past. And our guest for today is General Nipat Thonglek, former Permanent Secretary of Defense of Thailand. สวัสดีครับพลเอกนิพัฒน์
สวัสดีครับคุณชันชัย
First, let me ask you, looking at what is happening in Ukraine, people might wonder why such a devastating war still happened in 21st century in a digital world where everyone thought that actual war should be the thing in the past.
Well, actually, people all over the world, I think they were shocked and they're all surprised to see this kind of war. I would say that what's happening now in the war between Russia and Ukraine, it's a kind of conventional warfare, which is we have seen it. The last one in the world is in the World War II, which occurred in 1939. I'm sorry, 1939 to 1945. That was the last scene of conventional warfare. Conventional warfare, it means we all can see from the movie that, okay, all the tanks, artillery, thousands of troops cross the border, okay, try to fight to each other. This is a conventional warfare. Another kind of warfare is unconventional warfare. It means that you cannot see the tanks, the artillery, the aircraft or battleship. It's like a guerrilla warfare, something like that. So these are the two major kinds of war to let you understand.
So the unconventional warfare, is it like something that happened in Vietnam?
Something like that, and also the situation in Africa. That's an undeclared war. Okay, they fight each other.
Okay, and people might wonder that the conventional warfare, like the thing that happened in Second World War, couldn't it be avoided in case of Ukraine and Russia?
Yes, actually, we all. Oh, I forgot something to tell you, Kun Chanchai, that after the World War II, there were Korean War. Okay, Korean War, which is happened in 1950 up to 1953. 3 years of conventional warfare in Korea. That was the last scene, the last scenario that I can explain about conventional warfare. But in the case of Russia and Ukraine, we, as a former and ex-military, I was wondering that how did it happen? But I think that it is unavoidable because Russian leadership designed to do it this way, okay, for territorial gain.
Okay, so the importance of war in order to win, to have the victory, one country must be able to send their troops and gain the territory on the enemy ground, right?
That was the kind of conventional warfare and a declaration of war, okay? But the purpose of war, let me explain a little bit of, let me touch a little bit of the theory of a war, that the cause of war, it might be, number one, for territorial gain. Number two, it may cause from religion conflict. Number three, it might be from some kind of a nationalism. Number four is for a revenge. Number five is a civil war, and this is number six is a revolutionary war. This is the kind of war that has been categorized for us to understand.
Okay. And is it still necessary in 21st century that warfare need to be carried out with soldiers shooting at each other and plane flying over and drop bombs to kill people or to destroy buildings as many as possible? I mean, that is how you can win the war in the past. But in your opinion, how the war can actually be won in today's world?
That's a very smart question. Actually, there are so many choices to do that. I think you understand fully understand about the economic war. We are now, even Thailand now, or in every country now, we are fighting in economic warfare. Okay, competing with each other about the oil, okay, and energy, something like that. This is a kind of war which is it's not necessary at all to use the troop. Some of the superpower now in the world now using this kind of war. We don't have to mention the name of the country, but they are very strong, very influential to other or every part of the world. This is the kind of war, not necessary to use the troop, the tank, the artillery, or not to kill necessary, not unnecessary at all. We can choose that, but in case of Russia and Ukraine, they Russia decided to do that on the purpose of territorial gain. I would say that because
Okay.
look at the look at the reason. We have to study that and try to understand what is the root cause of the war. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, for about territorial gain, nationalism, revenge, civil war, or whatever, this becomes the root cause of the war in Ukraine now. It's
Okay.
territorial gain.
And talking about the economic war, some people might think that economic war is even more evil than the actual war. Would you agree with them?
Exactly, Kun Chan Chai. I totally agree with that. Look at in some country now, they collapse. Okay, let me say that this is an open source, and people all over the world now looking into Sri Lanka. What's happening now in Sri Lanka? The country is now collapsed. No fuel at all, no energy. We have they announced yesterday night to cut out the power, electrical power for 13 hours a
A
day.
day.
Yes, it's now happening in Sri Lanka. It's because of Sri Lanka is full of debt, okay, and they have no money to buy fuel from a foreign country. It gradually, okay, happening in Sri Lanka. This is a kind of economic war. Yeah, it's concrete evidence that we can see now in Sri Lanka. I don't have to speak about the other countries. Okay.
Okay, and this could be the cause before some country because they've been pressured so hard uh, in terms of economic and they have no other way out in other than invaded other country or express their anger in violence.
Exactly,
And
Kun Chan Chai. Let me complete this article, and we will see that somebody is stepping into Sri Lanka to provide them some assistance, to provide them the loan or the money or whatever. And this is a kind of economic war that they can control finally Sri Lanka.
okay, and about the actual war that happened in Ukraine, do you think that the war today has become more civilized? I mean, like less violent, like the way we fight became smarter and caused less damage? Or is it even becoming more violent and dangerous with all the deadlier weapons that we developed, the weapon of mass destruction?
As I said earlier, and we have discussed earlier that the last war, and we have seen the conventional warfare is a Korean War. Uh, Besides the war in the Middle East, that we shouldn't forget about that war in Iraq, in Iran, and in Syria, in Lebanon. The more and more brutal, more and more harmful for the weapons in the era of the digital. It's more precise and more killing for each kind of weapon. I want to say that everything that for the human being, we create many new innovation to kill more and more for the enemy. It's very I don't know.
It's really sad.
Very sad, very sad. Okay, let me explain more about the two concrete evidence. The concrete evidence to finish World War II. Remember that the
The
U.S. dropped.
nuclear bomb in Hiroshima
Yeah,
and Nagasaki.
exactly. On that incident, the first two atomic bombs used in this world. Now, all the superpowers, six or seven countries that obtain nuclear war, they have more and more thousands of nuclear bomb, nuclear warhead, which is more dangerous. Might be 100,000 times of atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's very dangerous, Kun Chanchai.
And people might worry that if Russia is cornered and has no way out of the Ukraine war, then there may be a slight possibility that the use of nuclear war maybe we can see it again. Uh, what is your opinion on that?
Okay, we have to make it clear, and I think Moscow made it clear uh, last week that we heard from Ministry of Defense spokesman. I can't remember his name. He announced that there will be a reason for Russia using nuclear bomb for if we look at our okay something that threatening to our country.
To the
So they
existence of Russia?
exactly. Okay, I forgot about that
Yeah.
word, but we can understand that they announce it clearly that if Russia use it, it means that we have the reason to use that. It doesn't. It means that uh, they they have a choice. Okay, and it is one of the choice. They can use it.
Yeah, because the use of nuclear would be actually destruction to everyone, to both victim and also the country that use it.
Exactly.
Okay,
Right.
and talking about the root, the cause of the war, we see that Russia and Ukraine had this long conflict, which led to the invasion. There are also other parts and countries in the world that still have conflict and unsettled arguments, like North Korea and South Korea, China and Taiwan, Russia and Japan. Do you think any of this conflict could lead to the actual war, like Russia and Ukraine?
From my research, the ongoing war right now in the world is around 70 plus countries.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, all
Yes.
over the world. Don't forget about the conflict in Africa. and some area that okay that we haven't heard about. But there is an institution, some of the researcher, they now doing research and looking at the okay global level that around more than 70 areas which are now fighting. Okay, let's coming back to the war in Ukraine and Russia now. I think okay, uh, we I am optimistic about what's going on. I mean, number one is the troop fighting on the ground. They still fighting, keep fighting. And number two, what they are doing now is a negotiation, or they are now having a dialogue for peace. This is, I mean, it is I am optimistic about this. Something happened now. This is a month and yeah, more than a month now after it happened.
And even though that many countries and all the people are trying to be peaceful and civilized, but it looks like that war has always been part of our, how do you say, our culture, our history. Uh, do you do you see that maybe we could reach the goal one day that the actual war or conflict violence can be eliminated from our nature as a human being?
Thanks, Chai. It's just you are just a dreamer, all right? And we all dream about that, Chai, as myself, as a former and ex-military man. Let's say that we look back thousand and thousand years of for the human being on the world in the world. I think you still remember the history or even the movie about the fighting of the Viking, the fighting of the Roman
Yes.
Empire, the fighting of Mongol, and everywhere. This world, since it's a world uh, for the human being, thousand years back and up to now, we still have war all the time. We cannot avoid that because it is like something. It's our like a habit. It's something that we try to do it. Okay, by establishing some mechanism, establishing okay education, but we cannot avoid that.
Okay.
But
So
how can we control it and transform the war from the battlefield into other kind of fighting, like economic war, something like that, even cyber attack. We can
to
transform that, okay, but we
to
cannot stop.
actually, okay,
Yeah,
like you said that we're trying to transfer the war maybe into the digital warfare or economy
hmm,
warfare in order to cause uh, less casualty to human life.
exactly.
Mm.
Let me again make it clear that I did my research that why the people, human being now fighting. What is the root cause of the fighting? Let me share this information with you, Kun Chan Chai. There are four things that the human being now are fighting for. Is number one is food, for food. Number two is fuel. It's
Fuel,
mean
energy,
fuel energy. It's mean number three, fresh water, fresh water, and number four, last but not least, is a land use.
because they are limited resources.
Exactly. So there are four reasons for things very important that the human being are now fighting for. And I can my perspective that the war in between Ukraine and Russia now, they are fighting for the four things like that.
Okay. And since uh, since the war cannot be avoided or it's very difficult to avoid, the military carrier or the troops play a very important part to maintain the safety of one country. How do you see the importance of military carrier in today's world? Because you know that there are arguments that in Thailand that or maybe we should spend less on our military and that maybe soldier is not that important anymore compared to 50 or 60 years ago.
Every country in the world still have and still carry on the military uh, numbers and also quality and quantity. You may not believe that, and even myself, one day I'm thinking of how about Switzerland, which is a very peaceful country. Do they have the soldiers? The answer is yes. They have an army. So
And
every community, every state, and every they need something to protect them. Okay, for their safety, for their interest. This is something that every country still maintain uh, more or less for the troop, for the army. It is very, very important, but it depends on your geopolitical. Okay, it depends on your your uh, circumstance. Like ASEAN now. Let's focus on ASEAN now. Okay, 10 countries all together. We have a negotiation. Okay, we have a dialogue, and we meet each other annually. We, I think it's not necessary to have a big size of the army, navy, and air force. From my perspective,
okay. And you yourself have a very long career in military. May I ask you that what what soldier, uh, whether they have a high rank or they are private, what do they think when war happens? I mean, do they feel like it is a necessary thing that they can go into action, or they actually do not wish to see war happen?
in every country, and it is the rule for the administration that the military will be the tool of the government to protect our national interests and so on and so forth. Let me talk about some of the sentence that I learned and I really like it. Somebody said, I think one of the soldiers said, "I hate war as only a soldier who has lived it can, only as one who has seen its brutality, its futility, its stupid." This is,
So
yeah,
actually, soldier is the greatest protester of war
exactly, exactly.
because
For
because they
my,
have seen it with their own eyes, the brutality of it.
yes, Kun
Mhm.
Chansai, from my experience, since I graduated from the Royal Military Academy of Thailand in 1977, I was assigned suddenly to Thai and Cambodia border as a second lieutenant with 50 soldiers under my command. I was in a very far away in the jungle between Thai and Cambodia border. What I have seen and still remember up to now is about the Cambodian. Okay, the innocent people, the ladies and the babies, they try to cross the border into Thai territory. They suffer a lot. Okay, from malaria, and they were all robbed. Okay, they were beat brutally by the Khmer Rouge. Okay, I myself and my unit have to take care of them. More than 1,000 of them crossed the border into Thailand along the border. Let's focus at my point and my responsibility. It's not so large area. We uh, try to secure them, give them food
Yes.
like baby. I feel pretty much, I hate that. I hate that moment that, okay, okay, why did it happen? The leadership, when they gave the order for the troop to do something, to fight, to repel, to kill the other people, did they see that what's happening on the ground? Okay, you see the people, millions of the Cambodian. I can say that 3 millions of them died during that civil war in Cambodia in 30, 40
Yeah.
years back.
Yeah.
I can see with my own eyes that really I hate that. I am so had a bad feeling about that.
Okay.
And
So
even now, even now in Ukraine,
yeah. So even though that the Thailand has no direct conflict with Cambodia, but the war that going on in one country also has an effect to other countries. Okay. And should Thailand be worried that some countries could invade us in today?
at the moment and at this kind of circumstance, okay, we now becomes 10 countries, becomes ASEAN. Okay, I think we have to be careful because just because it something the conflict might happen. It's because of the competition or about the national resources. As I mentioned earlier, Kunchansai, there are still very much of national resources like oil and gas in the sea, in the ocean, which is now no one claim, and no one we have no evidence that that area, that gas and oil in the sea, who owns that area. I mean, in the sea, and some part of the border area on the ground, it's still unclear that who owns this. So
Okay.
there might be just only a little chance for ASEAN countries, especially Thailand, to fight with each other. But we have to do some kind of the process to to talk and try to prove about that the problem.
Okay. And also that big countries they are trying to force smaller country to take side to oh you want to come and join us, or if you are not one of us then you are one of them. And I think that this could actually bring us into the accidental war with other countries. So what could we do, or any country could do to avoid such thing happen and maintain peace and sovereignty at the same time?
At the moment, let's look at some concrete evidence now. The war between Russia and Ukraine. I think you, Kun Chanchai, still remember that the last month that UN security, uh, they asked the countries, a member of the United Nations, to vote, okay, to vote against Russia. And number of the countries, I still remember that 141, 141 countries still put the sanction into Russia.
Yes.
And okay, and I think some abstain, 15 abstain. I think I remember that we, the Thailand, okay, we are on our own and we are independent country. We are both friends with Russia and Ukraine. But when the government, the Thai government, look into the detail, what's happening, okay, and we vote, we are the one in the 141 countries that doing that. For some country like Vietnam, they don't put the sanction into Russia. Every country has their own dignity, has their own interest to do that. Okay, but for Thailand, I think what we are doing now is the right thing, is the right decision. For I mean, the government made the right decision to do that, but in a very limited, okay, limited perimeter to do that. We still be friends, good friend with Russia and Ukraine. They are both very important for us.
Okay. Thank you very much, General Nipat, for talking with us today. And we all hope the best for the peace and that every country should resolve their conflict in through diplomacy and negotiation. Thank you very much for talking with us today. Thank you.
Thank you
ขอบ
so
คุณ
much.
มากครับ
I appreciate Kun Chanchay for having me for this conversation. Thank you so much.
ขอบคุณครับ
ขอบคุณครับ
And that's all for Voice of the Nation today. Thank you for staying with us.